Why do the greatest alien powers in the galaxy avoid provoking Earth? Why do civilizations capable of destroying entire planets prefer to keep their distance from our insignificant solar system? The answer lies in a story few know, but one that forever changed the balance of power in the known universe. A story that proves it's not the size of the military force that matters, but how you use it. Imagine an intergalactic war that lasted decades, consuming entire star systems and destroying millennia-old civilizations. Now, imagine this same war ending in just 5 hours, with not a single casualty on the winning side. Impossible? That's exactly what the Qadari thought, until they encountered humanity. This is the story of how our species, considered young and insignificant by the intergalactic coalition, transformed the rules of space warfare and established a new galactic order. A story that shows why, to this day, the mere mention of human tactics makes the most powerful empires tremble. The echo of warship engines resounded through the vast emptiness of space as the intergalactic coalition watched, with growing despair, as its defenses were systematically destroyed by the Qadari. The conflict, which had begun decades ago as a small territorial dispute, had turned into an all-out war, consuming entire star systems in its relentless fury. The military forces of the coalition, once proud and resilient, now found themselves on the brink of collapse, their war tactics proving ineffective against the adaptability and brutality of the enemy. In the farthest reaches of the known space, humanity silently observed the unfolding events. Their logistical support ships and humanitarian aid vessels were seen as symbols of weakness by many members of the coalition, who could not understand why a species capable of conquering its own solar system refused to wield weapons. Whispers in the corridors of space stations were always the same. Humans are cowards, some said. They are weak, others murmured. Little did they know, every move was calculated, every action was part of a bigger plan. General Corvo, a veteran of countless battles and a respected strategist of the Zin Consortium, was one of the few who took a more cautious view of humans. He noticed patterns where others saw only passivity. He saw purpose where others saw hesitation. In his nightly analyses, hunched over star maps and battle reports, he began to realize that humanity's apparent inaction hid something much deeper and potentially devastating. Electronic communications between the coalition's systems began to show increasingly concerning signs. The Qadari's enemy strategy was becoming more aggressive, more confident. They no longer saw the need to use elaborate tactics or maintain extensive supply lines. A quick victory seemed inevitable in their eyes, and this arrogance began to manifest in bolder and more reckless attacks. Meanwhile, in the depths of space controlled by Earth, human fleets were silently preparing. Every ship, every weapon, every system had been meticulously designed and tested for a single purpose. Warfare as a game of chess was something humanity had perfected over millennia of conflict on their own planet. And now those lessons would be applied on a galactic scale. The strategic coordination of Earth's forces was something no other species had witnessed before. While other races focused on raw firepower and impressive numbers, humans had developed something much more sophisticated: the ability to turn chaos into order, to see patterns where others saw only confusion, to predict moves before they were even executed. The decisive moment arrived without warning. A single message transmitted across all known frequencies in every language of the coalition. Humanity officially declares its entry into the war. The entire universe seemed to hold its breath at that moment. No one knew what to expect, but everyone felt that something monumental was about to happen. In 10 minutes, the fate of entire civilizations would be changed forever. The tactical hologram pulsed with a bluish light at the center of the command room, casting dancing shadows on the tense faces of the officers of the intergalactic coalition. General Corvo, representative of the Zin Consortium, kept his eyes fixed on the small lights representing the human fleets emerging from hyperspace. His hands, calloused from years of military service, unconsciously gripped the edge of the command table as his mind tried to process what he was seeing. The ships were unlike anything he had encountered in his decades of service. Unlike the impressive warships of the Qadari with their armored hulls and overt weaponry, or the majestic fleets of the Coalition, the human vessels appeared almost fragile in their simplicity. They were compact, efficient, with no ornamentation or unnecessary display of power. A captured Qadari officer would have laughed at them, dismissing them as insignificant in the face of his species' vast firepower. But General Corvo had learned over the years that appearances on the battlefield were often deceiving. It was then that the humans' adaptive war tactics began to reveal themselves. The small ships moved in formations that seemed chaotic at first, but soon proved to be part of a deadly precise dance. There was no wasted movement, no precision strikes squandered. Every maneuver, every shot, every positioning had a specific purpose within a larger plan that only the humans seemed to fully comprehend. The first indication that something extraordinary was happening came when the Qadari's electronic communication systems began to fail. It wasn't an immediate, catastrophic failure. It was something much more subtle, and for that reason, much more devastating. Messages came through corrupted, orders were misinterpreted, disinformation spread like a virus through enemy lines. The collapse of defense began not with explosions, but with confusion and uncertainty. The military forces of the Coalition watched, stunned, as the human fleets executed maneuvers that defied everything they knew about space tactics. Where the Qadari expected to find resistance, they found only emptiness. When they tried to regroup, they discovered that their formations had already been anticipated and circumvented. It was as if the humans were playing a three-dimensional chess game, while their opponents were still trying to figure out the basic rules. The officers in the command room began to realize they were witnessing something unprecedented in the history of galactic warfare. The strategic coordination demonstrated by Earth's forces went beyond mere military efficiency. It was a form of art. The apparent chaos of their maneuvers hid a mathematical precision that turned every move into a calculated strike against the enemy's command structure. The quick victory that the Qadari had so longed for was transforming into their own defeat. As the hours passed, the Qadari forces began to lose cohesion. The human fleets, seemingly outnumbered, were everywhere. Always one step ahead, always in the right place at the right time. The once confident Qadari commanders found themselves scrambling to adapt, but it was too late. The calculated chaos of humanity's tactics had already rendered their traditional methods obsolete. In the heart of the battlefield, General Corvo watched in disbelief. He had seen many battles and had fought against countless enemies, but never before had he encountered a force that turned the very nature of war into an intellectual challenge. Every move the humans made was as if they knew exactly what the enemy would do before they even made it. It was as though they were always playing from the future, while the Qadari were stuck in the present. The Qadari command structure began to break down. The once unified fleet started to fragment, as commanders attempted to react to human moves that they couldn't even anticipate. The intercoms buzzed with frantic orders, but no one seemed to know where to direct the remaining forces. The battlefield, once a chaotic mess of explosions and laser fire, had transformed into a carefully orchestrated display of human superiority. And then, in a final, decisive move, the humans launched a coordinated strike on the heart of the Qadari command center. With surgical precision, they disabled the enemy's central communications relay, effectively cutting off all coordination between the remaining forces. The Qadari, now isolated and disoriented, were easy prey for the final assault. The Qadari fleet, once so powerful and confident, was now shattered. Their grand designs of a quick victory had turned into a spectacular defeat. The Coalition, still reeling from the shock of humanity's tactics, could only watch as the balance of power in the galaxy shifted forever. In less than an hour, it became clear that the war was taking a turn that no one, except perhaps the humans themselves, could have predicted. The impressive data started coming in, entire systems being reclaimed with not a single human casualty. Kidari fortresses once considered impregnable falling one after the other, supply routes being cut with surgical precision. The military empire that had terrorized the galaxy for so long was being systematically dismantled by a force they had completely underestimated. The desperate attempt by the Kidari to reorganize their defenses resembled an amateur chess player facing a grandmaster. Every move they made had already been anticipated. Every counterattack they planned already had a prepared response. Humanity's adaptive warfare tactics were not just superior, they were transcendent. As other species of the intergalactic coalition watched in awe, the humans executed a symphony of destruction with the precision of a surgeon and the elegance of a dancer. The precision strikes of the human fleets were like brushstrokes on a cosmic canvas, each movement calculated to maximize impact while minimizing resource wastage. The terrestrial military forces weren't concerned with destroying every Kidari ship they encountered. That would have been inefficient. Instead, they focused on specific strategic points, like a chess player, sacrificing a pawn to capture the queen. War as a chess game was not just a metaphor for humans, it was a fundamental philosophy of combat. The strategic coordination of the terrestrial forces was something that left alien observers in a state of shock. While the Kidari relied on rigid hierarchies and centralized communications, the human fleets operated with almost organic flexibility. Each ship seemed to know exactly its role in the grand scheme of things, adapting instantly to changes on the battlefield. The apparent chaos of their movements hid a deeper order, a deadly dance choreographed with atomic precision. In just 2 hours of combat, the Kidari's enemy strategy had been completely dismantled. Their electronic communication lines, once considered inviolable, were in tatters. Misinformation spread through their ranks like a virus, turning their command structure into a source of confusion. The ensuing defense collapse wasn't just military, it was psychological. The certainty of a quick victory the Kidari had cherished so much had transformed into a nightmare of doubts and uncertainties. In the 3rd hour of the conflict, the reports reaching the command room of the coalition seemed almost impossible to believe. Entire sectors of Kidari space had been taken without a single human casualty. The terrestrial fleets moved like ghosts through the enemy's defenses, attacking and retreating with a precision that defied comprehension. The once proud and fierce Kidari resistance began to show signs of desperation. Their war tactics, developed over centuries of conflict, were proving useless against an enemy that seemed to predict every move. In the 4th hour, panic began to spread among the Kidari generals. Their secret fortresses, hidden in the most remote corners of space, were being discovered and neutralized one after the other. It was as if the humans had mapped out every hideout, every escape route, every contingency plan, long before the battle began. The inevitable war they had feared so much had turned into something far worse, a systematic and humiliating defeat. As the 5th hour approached, the truth began to painfully dawn on all the observers. The impressive data coming in was not just numbers on a screen. It was the testimony of something unprecedented in the history of galactic warfare. The Kidari, military empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for generations, was being methodically dismantled by a force they had completely underestimated. And most impressively, the humans made it look easy, as if they were simply moving pieces on a cosmic chessboard. In the command room of the Intergalactic Coalition, the silence was deafening. General Corvo, a veteran of countless battles from the Zin Consortium, watched the tactical holograms with a mix of admiration and terror. The impressive data blinking before his eyes told a story that seemed impossible. In just 5 hours, the human military forces had achieved what entire armies had failed to accomplish in decades of warfare. Even more impressive was the fact that there had been no human casualties recorded, not a single one. a feat that defied all known military logic. The intercepted electronic communications from the Qadari fleets revealed a disturbing pattern of increasing panic. The enemy strategy, once so confident and aggressive, had transformed into a disorganized series of contradictory orders and desperate calls for reinforcements. The defense collapse was not only physical, but also psychological. For the first time in history, the feared Qadari warriors were experiencing something they had never known: absolute and unrestricted fear of defeat. The war, as a chess game that the humans had turned into a deadly art, was having a devastating effect on the Qadari psyche. Their adaptive war tactics, which had once been their greatest advantage, now seemed childish and predictable in the face of the strategic coordination demonstrated by the terrestrial forces. The chaos that was settling in their ranks was not the result of massive attacks or brutal displays of strength, but rather of surgical precision that turned every human movement into a calculated blow against their will to fight. It was at this moment that a human officer entered the command room, his presence causing an immediate shift in the atmosphere. His uniform was notable for its simplicity: no medals, no decorations, no status symbols. However, there was something in his posture that emanated a natural authority, making the elaborate attire of the alien officers seem like mere ostentation. His eyes, cold and analytical, observed each commander present as if evaluating not only their military capabilities, but the very value of their civilizations. The question he posed, "You call this a war?" echoed through the room like a gunshot. The coldness in his voice carried neither contempt nor arrogance, only an objective statement of facts. For humanity, what other species considered an epic conflict was nothing more than a tactical exercise. The swift victory they had achieved was not the result of luck or technological superiority, but of centuries of evolution in the art of war, refined through countless conflicts on their own planet. The silence that followed was broken only by the constant flow of reports confirming the extent of the Qadari defeat. The human fleets continued their inexorable march through contested space, their precision strikes turning once impenetrable fortresses into smoking ruins. The Qadari resistance, once considered legendary, had proven insignificant in the face of a force that seemed to operate on a completely different level of strategic understanding. As he watched events unfold, General Corvo began to grasp a disturbing truth. The inevitable war that everyone had feared had arrived, but not in the way they had expected. Humanity had not entered the conflict as just another participant. They had arrived as masters of a game that other species were only beginning to understand. And the most terrifying realization was that perhaps they had not yet shown their full potential. The Qadari's decision to retreat their mothership to a secret fortress on the fringes of the galaxy might have seemed like a brilliant move to any other species of the intergalactic coalition. However, for the human military forces, it was nothing more than another predictable move in their elaborate cosmic chess game. General Corvo, observing the events from the command room, did not need his vast experience in war tactics to know that this supposed masterstroke by the Qadari had already been anticipated long before it was executed. The human officer present in the room allowed a faint smile to cross his lips when news of the retreat arrived. Not a smile of satisfaction or arrogance, but one of someone witnessing the confirmation of a long-established theory. The strategic coordination of the Earth fleets was so precise that they could afford to let the enemy carry out their contingency plans, knowing that every move would only lead them deeper into a carefully prepared trap. War as a chess game had reached a new level of sophistication. As the Qadari mothership approached its supposed salvation, intercepted electronic communications revealed a mix of relief and apprehension among their commanders. The Qadari resistance, once proud and fierce, was now clinging to one last hope for survival. They had yet to realize that their most desperate enemy strategy was about to become their final blow. The chaos reigning within their ranks was only a prelude to what was to come. When the secret fortress finally appeared on the sensors, the Qadari experienced a fleeting moment of triumph. Their cloaking technology, developed over centuries, had kept that location hidden from all their enemies. However, that feeling of security lasted only until the moment when human fleets emerged from hyperspace, appearing in perfect formation around the facility. The swift victory they had feared so much was about to materialize, but not in their favor. The terms of surrender transmitted by the humans were surprisingly lenient, considering the devastation they had caused. There were no demands for astronomical reparations, nor impositions of permanent military occupation. The Qadari military empire would be allowed to maintain its internal autonomy as long as it agreed to integrate into the new galactic order that was being established. It was a clear demonstration that humanity was not fighting for conquest or domination, but for something far more sophisticated: stability. The hesitation of the Qadari commanders was brief. The overwhelming data from the last 5 hours of combat spoke for itself. 0 human casualties, entire systems retaken with surgical precision, their best defenses neutralized with no apparent effort. The inevitable war they had initiated had turned into a humiliating lesson on the true nature of military power. It was not a matter of brute force or technological superiority, but of a profound understanding of the art of war. The final transmission of surrender was received with the same calculated professionalism that had characterized the entire human campaign. There were no exuberant celebrations or displays of triumph. For the Earth forces, this had been nothing more than another exercise, a practical demonstration of their capabilities. The total collapse of the Qadari's defenses, their broken pride, and their ineffective war tactics would serve as a reminder to all species in the galaxy. Underestimating humanity was a mistake one only made once. In the silence that followed the Qadari surrender, General Corvo found himself contemplating the deeper implications of what he had witnessed. The inevitable war that everyone had feared had turned into something very different from what was expected. Humanity's military forces had not merely won a battle, they had completely rewritten the rules of intergalactic conflict. The intergalactic coalition, with all its experience in war tactics, now faced a species that had elevated combat to the level of an exact science. His question to the human officer, "How were you so prepared for this?" was born not only out of professional curiosity but from a fundamental need to understand. The answer he received was characteristically succinct but laden with meaning. Humanity had not simply prepared for this specific war. They had prepared for any war. The strategic coordination they had demonstrated was not the result of recent planning but of millennia of evolution in their understanding of conflict. The overwhelming battle data continued to be analyzed by strategists from all species. 0 human casualties in a campaign that had destroyed an entire military empire. This defied all established theories on space warfare. The swift victory they had achieved was not just a demonstration of technical superiority, but proof that war as a chess game could be elevated to previously unimaginable levels. The apparent chaos of their tactics concealed an order so deep that it was only now beginning to be understood. Electronic communications between the various worlds of the coalition buzzed with speculation and theories. Some saw in human actions a new way of thinking about conflict and power. Others, more cautious, recognized in Earth's adaptive war tactics echoes of their own ancient battles, refined and perfected to an almost artistic level. The misinformation and rumors that circulated were quickly replaced by more sober analyses as the true nature of human power became clear. The Qadari resistance, once considered invincible, had proven powerless before a force that operated on a completely different level of strategic understanding. Their secret fortress, the last bastion of hope, had become the stage for their final surrender. The collapse of their defenses was not merely military, it was philosophical. Their entire vision of war and power had been fundamentally challenged and found lacking. In the new galactic order that was beginning to emerge, humanity assumed a role that few could have predicted. They did not behave like traditional conquerors, imposing their will through brute force. Instead, they presented themselves as architects of a new form of interstellar stability. Your human fleets, which had proven to be so devastatingly efficient in combat, now served as guarantors of a peace founded not on fear, but on mutual respect and understanding. The human officer, still maintaining his characteristically reserved demeanor, observed the reactions of the various alien representatives with clinical interest. For him and his compatriots, ending the war quickly was not just a matter of military efficiency, it was a moral responsibility. Humanity had learned, through its own bloody history, that true victory was not in the destruction of the enemy, but in creating conditions that made future conflicts not only undesirable, but unthinkable. So, what did you think of this impressive demonstration of human military power? Can you imagine what it would be like to be in General Corvo's shoes, witnessing such an overwhelming victory? But this isn't the only surprising story about humanity's power in space. Speaking of which, have you ever heard about the time when a single human cargo ship managed to defeat an entire fleet of space pirates using only math? It's true. And that story is playing right now in your feed. If you were impressed by how we ended a war in just 5 hours, wait until you find out how a freighter managed to defeat 15 warships without firing a single shot. Don't miss this next incredible story. Click on the video appearing on your screen now. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our epic stories about humanity's dominance in space. After all, you wouldn't want to be the last to find out why even the elders of the galaxy tremble when they hear about Earth, would you?